The last few months have been a time of great loss. Um, I know I, for one, was looking forward to a little hiking trip with my family. I know that I'm new to my current location and was looking forward to opportunities to build new relationships. That's been put on hold. Not to mention just kind of settling in and working on new projects in my job as a pastor. And in fact, as I and pastors across the country attempt to sustain worship, fellowship, and mission for our churches, it feels like we're sometimes it feels like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel to make it all work, and the whole situation and our whole perception of the situation seems to be one of scarcity, in which we can't help but see things through the lens of deficits and what we're lacking and what we don't have. And we can't help but think that, well, there's just not enough. There's not enough for what we need. Paul, writing to the Philippian church from prison, writes that he's known times of plenty, he's known times of want. He knows what it's like to have seemingly endless resources, and he knows what it's like to have almost nothing. And in light of all these experiences, Paul writes, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Now, sometimes that verse can be really pulled out of context, and I can do all things, and it's given this very big magic connotation. But Paul's talking about this in terms of access or lack of access to resources, and Paul has found that even when he seemed to lack what was needed, even when those resources weren't available that he would have liked, by God's grace, he always had enough. There was always enough. And that's a very powerful word, enough. And that word evokes the question of, well, what is enough? What is enough for me to be happy? What is enough for me to serve others? What is enough for me to have a sustained life? And I think that we can get so caught up in what we don't have that we miss the fact that often than not there is enough. And all that we need to carry out what it is that we're here for is here. All we need is here. But Jesus asked his followers one time to simply observe the natural world around them and to see this reality of enough. He looks at birds and says they don't toil in the fields, they don't build barns, but God ensures that they have food, that they eat. And the grass of the field doesn't sow or weave, but the grass is clothed in beauty beyond richest garments. God opens a generous hand to all people. The sun rises on the just and the unjust alike. The rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous alike. All have enough. And Jesus' observations of these simple, natural events reveal that there is enough, but that perhaps we fail to see it, so we live in anxiety. We fail to see it, and so in that anxiety we refuse to give or share with others or to create more equitable arrangements for our community and society because we are not convinced that there is enough. We keep believing that there is not enough, forgetting that we can do all things through the God who provides, the God who feeds the birds and clothes the grass. It may not be as much as we want, but it is enough. And perhaps that's the problem for us. Perhaps we don't think that enough is actually enough for us. That there's always more to want, more to desire. That refusal to be content and grateful because we just cannot observe the enough in our lives. Now, in order to create a sense of community and to transform lives and communities, Jesus didn't really have that much. In fact, he ordered his disciples to not travel with anything more than the clothes on their back. But there was always enough. Usually all that was needed was a table, some bread, some wine, and a spirit of welcome, willing to share oneself with others and receive their presence in return. Everything Jesus needed, everything that his followers needed was there. There was always enough. So as we continue through a time that is not what it should be, as we struggle with the idea that we do not have what we would be satisfied with, and anxious about having sufficient resources, let us ask, what is enough? What do we really need as children of God and as servants of God? May we have eyes to see the simple gifts of a God whose sun shines and rain falls on all of God's children. What is the enough in our lives that we miss when we continue to focus on and look for the deficits? May we see the hand of the one who provides food to the birds, who clothes the grass in splendor. And may we see in those simple gifts the key to understanding the enough in our lives, and know that all we need is here. All we need for a life satisfied in the grace of God, all we need to transform our communities, we don't need to keep waiting for it, but all we need is here, if we are willing to see it, and if we're willing to be freed from the fear of not having enough. All we need is here. And so on that note, I leave you with a poem, The Wild Geese by Wendell Berry. And may you too look to the geese on their migration as they pass through Erie and Presque Isle. And as you see them in the sky, remember that all we need is here. The Wild Geese. Horseback on Sunday morning, harvest over, we taste persimmon and wild grape, sharp sweet of summer's end. In time's maze over fall fields, we name names that went west from here, names that rest on graves. We open a persimmon seed to find the tree that stands in promise, pale in the seed's marrow. Geese appear high over us, pass, and the sky closes. Abandon, as in love or sleep, holds them to their way clear in the ancient faith. What we need is here. And we pray not for new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and an eye clear. What we need is here.